Hello, Courage, Confidence, and Connections podcast listeners. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Janice Devo Speaks. And today I speak with Sree. She's got a fascinating life and background, and we're going to learn all about her and just have fun today. So sit back, enjoy yourself, grab that coffee or whatever, and relax. So, welcome, Sree.
Thank you, Jan. Really happy to be here. Looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. What part of the world do you hail from, as we say in the South?
I think it's fairly obvious for people who know. I come from India. I was born in India, grew up there, um, got married in 1980, and then since then we've been traveling the world. So I've been, you know, the Middle East, England, Canada,
Oh,
Northern Maine, Alabama, and now in Georgia,
oh,
Atlanta. So,
well, you're
so,
close to my stomping grounds from North Carolina. And yeah, that's great. Do you feel, did you feel like you had a culture shock when you got to Georgia?
no, I mean, I moved to Georgia from Alabama, so
Oh, okay.
no. So,
Well, Alabama probably was a culture shock. So,
so
oh,
yeah, my husband still works in Alabama at the VA there. And I moved to Atlanta when I started working for RTI, which actually is in North Carolina,
mm,
but we had offices here.
I'm
So
familiar with them. Yeah. Aren't they based in the Research Triangle Park?
yeah, Research Triangle Institute. Yeah, yeah.
I worked out there and not at them, not with them, but I worked, that was my territory in my former life in sales. So my old stomping grounds for sure. Well, that
Mm.
is great. Now, I have a question. Were you in research yourself?
Yes, yes. I
Okay.
am. So I have a PhD in applied statistics, um, which I got in 2001 when I was 40 years old. Um, and then since then I worked for about 12 years at the UAB Comprehensive Cancer Center. I ended up as the director of their biostatistics and bioinformatics unit, at interim director, and then I moved to Atlanta to join RTI to continue work as a biostatistician in health research. So
Fantastic. Well, you have led definitely a very interesting life traveling the world. I think our audience might enjoy a good story or two from you about some of your travels and what, how did you decide to leave India and, you know, meet your husband or what came first? Can you give us a little more background on your life story there?
um sure. I grew up in India. I lost my mom at the age of 19 in a plane crash. She died on December 31st, 1977. And she was she was my closest friend and confidant.
Mm.
So that was the first kind of real shock to my system. Um, and then I got married with in 1980. It was a completely arranged marriage, so we match horoscopes to see if before anything happens. So the horoscopes are matched, and then we meet each other and decide if this is a person that we feel even remotely attracted to, or feel that we can spend the rest of our lives with. Um, And then, so that's what happened. When the horoscopes were matched, in fact, the astrologer, the family astrologer, said these people are bound to get married. This is because we believe in reincarnation. So they said they have been partners before. They are meant to be partners again this time around.
Nice.
Um, and so I met my husband for about 30 minutes on December 5th, 1979. And then we got married January 28th of 1980. And I didn't speak to him between those two times. Um, because he was already practicing in Kerala and I was in Bombay. And he wanted to his entire plan was to move to go to the Middle East and then from the Middle East to England to get his membership to do his postgraduate training. And it's called a membership exam, the MRCP, membership of the Royal College of Physicians.
Wow.
The original plan was to go back to India, but by the time he got his membership exam, then after that he we this was all follow. Essentially, I was following my husband around the world. He decided to go to do a fellowship in Canada, in Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, Canada, and we were there for 4.5 years. Where that's where he got his passed his boards and stuff. And from there, we moved to Caribou, Maine, where we got our green cards. And then from there, we moved to Alabama. Uh, and then, so in between all of that, I gathered up three master's degrees, one in English literature, one in community health and epidemiology from Saskatchewan, and then an applied statistics master's and a PhD from Alabama. So,
Okay. To say you're smart is minimizing.
so, and I had my son. I delivered my son in November 1980, so about 9 months after, 10 months after my marriage, and lost a baby in between, and then had my daughter in England in 1987. So I have a 44-year-old son and a 37-year-old daughter.
Fantastic. What would you say your favorite place to live was? Because you went from the you went from east to west to far north to far south. What would you say? I mean, that's a lot of transition, a lot of culture change. Did you have any one particular place you enjoyed the most?
No, I think in general, human beings are the same wherever you are.
Mhm.
Um, I will say that this might sound surprising, but I felt the most welcome when I came to the United States because um, I think it's partly because we were in a really small town in northern Maine. You know, doctors are needed, they're respected.
Mm.
There was that. Um, but despite what's going on right now, it is true that I experienced less racism and less of the question of where do you come from
Mhm.
in the United States than in Canada or in England. So in that sense, and now I'm a citizen here, right? So I'm a fully participating,
Mhm.
vocal, politically active citizen. And so I do enjoy that part of it. I always love going back to India, and it's there's there is a sense of home
Mhm.
there that probably will not be there anywhere else. There is a kind of um, relaxation that comes when you land and you're driving through the street. So where you've grown up, and
Yeah.
there's something that happens in the body when you're there. Um, but other than that, I think um, the
Yeah.
United States has been the most welcoming.
Well, that is so good to hear. I think the culture, I've never been um, to India or anywhere in that outside. I've been to Germany. That's as far as I went, of course, to Canada when I was younger. And I don't recall much as in Canada. Like I was a kid.
Hmm.
However, I find it really, really nice to hear that you feel the most welcomed in the United States. And coming from the area where your company was based in North Carolina, in the Research Triangle area, it's just a melting pot and a lot of cultures there, more so than when I even left. Now, your culture it's a beautiful culture. I don't know if movies do it justice. I've watched a couple of movies, The Marigold Hotel, those two movies.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Oh, the dance and the beauty of your culture is so colorful. And
Yes.
it's so colorful, and the dancing is I'm like, wow, they put a disco to shame. It's such a beautiful, beautiful culture. I've had invitations to go visit, but no inclination because I'm kind of a homebody. But I know what you mean about when you land there, because being from North Carolina, I will probably never live there again. That's no intention or even a desire at this point. I don't like moving is the main reason. But visiting, you do when you land where you're born. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, there is an energy there that is very, ah, even though there's not a home place,
Yeah.
the energy of where you came from. So I get that totally. And I'd love you to tell our audience. I mean, you told me a little bit before we started, but what is your background professionally? And then we want to talk about what you're doing now because I find it very exciting and a lot to offer people. But let's talk about your background with your degrees. What kind of things have you been working with before you moved into your own business?
So I have my bachelor's degrees in mathematics and physics actually, though I wouldn't say that I know enough about physics to I mean now other than what I've read after that. And then I got all of these degrees from literature to a very quantitative work. I worked in health research, so designing clinical trials, reviewing studies, understanding whether they're good studies or not, helping researchers design studies and all of that. But I have always been, even in my PhD application, the thing was you you can't be siloed if you're really doing research. You do need to understand that it has to be a combination of qualitative and quantitative work,
Mm,
right? And I've also always been cognizant of the fact that we have a lot of power within ourselves, that with our mind and with our thoughts, we can alter the results of what we experience. And so even while I was at UAB, I did look at different did a lot of reading. There's this whole field of psychoneuroimmunology, um, which which looks at how our psychology can affect our immunology, and there are a lot of studies about how mindset can affect responses
mm,
to various diseases. And I think now with all the work that Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing, I think he's setting up the science to a much greater degree as well. Um, I've done some work in looking at what I called miraculous cancer cures, and the thing is, I just put out a question to all of the oncologists at UAB and said, have you had patients who have recovered who you didn't expect to recover? And almost every single one of the oncologists had at least one or two cases where that they referred to us. I think we interviewed about 22 people to figure out what was it that was different about them. And unfortunately, we couldn't get to a clear, a very first of all, it's only 22 people, but also there wasn't a clear thing, except that they were all from the deep south, right? They're all they have a very deep faith. And I think as a result of that, they were also more open to new trials. So if there was something new open to them, they seemed to be more willing to have the faith that it could work for them. So so that has always been in my background. And then I began to look into more mind body things. Like, then I eventually got certified in tapping in emotional freedom technique. I'm a certified practitioner. I started meditating somewhere in between uh, my doctoral degree, actually, because it was I think I describe it somewhere on my website. There was this moment when my kids were in the back. I was driving them to college and to school respectively, and there's something had happened at home. I don't even remember what it was. Right, my husband's a busy physician. I'm doing my PhD. The kids are busy, the great students. They have busy stuff going on in school. And I remember this thing happening in my head where there's this constant chatter, and I suddenly became aware of the chatter. And some of it was meaningless, some of it was responding to something my husband had said, some of it was talking to a colleague. And, it was such a mixture of craziness going on. And I remember thinking to myself, please shut up. I mean, it was not thinking, it was actually yelling, so. And,
That's great.
and then I, even though I've grown up in India, right? Even though I'm a Hindu, and part of what our religion is yoga and meditation, and we don't grow up doing any of that. I learned yoga in Alabama, of all places, but it was the need to find a way to silence my mind was very evident, and so I started inquiring, and I began to look at different ways of doing the meditations, and eventually came up with my own way to, with everything that I had read and learned and practiced. I have my own way of just getting helping people get into their body and finding that quiet center within themselves. And then I did a couple of courses with some clients with my meditations. And then I also wrote a book called More Than Peace: Power and Presence Through Meditation. And it's interesting because it also has some stories about how the book has 10 meditations. It starts off with getting fully embodied, understanding where your observer is, what
Mm,
he feels like. And then I go through some of the sort of negative emotions called, anger, jealousy, shame, guilt,
yeah.
those kinds of things, and how to welcome those parts of you that feel all that instead of suppressing them, right? Becoming open to being fully who you are. You are a bitch sometimes, who's jealous or who's angry or who wants revenge. And that's okay. To be able to just be okay with exactly who you are is one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves and also other people. Because once we are comfortable with who we are, we tend to judge other people less. Because what triggers us in others is what we judge in ourselves. And so when we become comfortable with ourselves, it genuinely changes relationships that you have with the world and with other human beings. It's an amazing um, thing to experience. And then as you read, you also become aware of the fact, like, there's Dr. Porges who created the whole polyvagal theory, and who talked about, and now everyone talks about the vagus nerve, and how
Right.
Dr. Porges actually, who used to be in North Carolina, I think he used to be in Illinois, then he came to North Carolina, and now I'm not quite sure where he is. but but he developed the polyvagal theory, and talked about how we evolved through time to get the vagus nerve to be doing everything that it does, and how to use that information to become more emotionally regulated. One of the things he talks about, or one of his things that came up for him as he was developing the theory, was this idea of neuroception. We talk about perception, but he created this word called neuroception, which essentially is talking about how our neurophysiological system is constantly scanning the environment to see if we are safe or not.
Mm-hmm.
If we feel safe within our body, the person who's interacting with us detects that and feels safe. If we are defensive, the person we are interacting with is defensive. So when you do something like this, when you become this person who's fully comfortable in her own skin,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes much easier to deal or talk to other people and to make them feel at ease and feel comfortable. This becomes important not just in your personal relationships, in when you're in a work environment working in teams, but also as an entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what are you doing when you're selling
Right.
a product or service? You're selling yourself. And if as you are selling yourself, there is a division within you that is talking about, are you sure you like yourself? Are you, you know,
Right.
then that is conveyed to the person you're talking to. And so that's for me, that's why the whole concept of self-love becomes almost indispensable if you want to become a successful entrepreneur. So
We are so in alignment. I have been on this journey for some time, but in the last few years, and more so within the last year, really prompted to love myself and figure out who am I. It is it is not an easy journey. It is, I'll tell anybody that listens, it is a journey you must take, but it is not easy because things will come up like you were talking about. And I've had people and things trigger me that I just tilt my head and go, what was that about? But if you sit and listen to your heart, you'll go, oh my gosh, something from my past, or anything can work as a trigger. But don't look at it as a negative. I just wrote about this not long ago in my blog. But you and I love Joe Dispenza. I do his meditations pretty much every day, and Dr. Patrick Porter's, you know, stuff
mhm.
too. I I'm listening to you going, we've been on the one mind for a long time. You've got the degrees to prove things, and I've got the intuition that says, yep, is that
Yeah.
oh over there, you're over there. But isn't it the truth, Sri, that we've got to learn to love ourselves? And that's a very basic in most religions, that what we despise or have a problem with in others is simply a reflection looking back at us.
Yeah, absolutely. In Hinduism, there's a phrase called Tattvamasi, which means that is thou. Or I think in Christianity, I think it is, I've forgotten the phrase now, but essentially it's what is what is inside is what is outside. There is a better way to say it. Um, and I think it's part of every religion, because in the end every religion has come from the same source, right? It is different ways for different people and to get to their highest self.
Absolutely.
um, One of the things, right now I'm in the I'm reading, I do this all the time, I'm reading several books, right? So the one one book I'm reading is called The Neurophysiology of We, that
Oh,
is by Dr. Dan Siegel, and it's about the interaction, about how our neurophysiology first develops, and then how it affects us when we are interacting with there is an actual neurophysiological system of we, like when we are
Oh,
interacting. Dr. Dispenza talks about how in order to create a different life, you have to become different, right? You need to change.
exactly.
And interestingly enough, I'm also reading this book called 10x is Easier Than 2x, the business book by Dan Sullivan, who talks about Dan Kennedy, not Sullivan, who talks about, I'm hoping it's Dan Kennedy. Anyway, I mean, what they're talking about is it's much easier to 10x your business than to 2x your business. But in order to 10x your business, you have to become a different person.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's been fascinating for me to bring all of these three kind of streams together. And when you talk about triggers, one of the things Dr. Siegel teaches us is about implicit memories and explicit memories, right? So
Oh,
implicit memories start off before we are born. They start off like in the third trimester of in the womb. So um, in India, we talk about how important it is for the mother to be in a good space when she's pregnant. So, you read scripture, you listen to hymns, or to be, because the fetus is affected when so those implicit memories start then, and then it's around about 18 months to 2 years when the hippocampus begins to
hmm,
become active and connect different parts of our brain. So, but implicit memories are laid down throughout our life. So, when we are stressed out, what happens is that the hippocampus stops working. It just shuts down.
yeah.
So that memory is not processed into an explicit memory. So it does not have both either the autobiographical, this happened to me at this time stamped on it. It's just there. We have a physiological reaction, and we have uh, it's kind of buried somewhere. So when we get triggered, it is often because there is an implicit memory that has not been processed. So, one of the examples he gives is if you felt neglected when you were a child and ignored or not listened to when you were a child, you become a parent. And if your daughter or son says, "No, I want my dad to do this for me, I don't want you to do this," you get triggered in a way that you absolutely do not expect,
Mhm.
because that it's bringing up that memory of feeling rejected or feeling not heard. And so it behooves us to become more, and that is what techniques like EFT and meditation help us to do, to do that, to say, oh, what was that about? Why did I get so triggered about that? Where did that come from? And EFT is an absolutely marvelous technique to be able to
Mm.
help people to go there while they're feeling safe. So
Well, that is, and there's something I'll share with you off camera,
yeah.
and I'll just leave our audience in question about that. But I 100% agree. And boy, this discussion could go on for hours. It's fascinating that, I mean, we're dealing with a lot of stuff in the world right now and everywhere. But I encourage people to, stop, just cut out the noise, stop the noise and listen to yourself. Listen to your heart. I journal. I've got like 35 journals here over the years, and I'm using them to reference writing my book, which again is not the easiest thing to do, my second book. But I'd like you to tell our audience even more about what you do, because this discussion could get really deep and go on forever. But I want to make sure we address what you do. And of course, all your information will be available. And and tell us a little bit about the passion behind what you do.
So we talked a little bit about this new framework that I had developed, right? And it is about going from a space of feeling helpless and powerless, which actually a lot of us are feeling right now, to a place of defiance that, if you, I'm going to take care of this, whether whatever it is, I am going to become independent. I am going to take care of myself if there's no one else to take care of me. I am going to become financially independent. Um, and then when you're in that space, you want to do it all by yourself. You because you've been hurt, or at least this was my experience. Um, you want to prove to yourself in a certain sense that you can do it, and then you come to a place where you actually realize, no, you are allowed to welcome, to receive support from others. Nobody ever lives in an on an island. So it goes from defiance to becoming open to receiving. And then when you're actually getting into the stage of becoming a leader, you realize you become a member of a team. You become someone who brings people in and lifts them up as you are also lifted up. And I'm really excited. This is kind of like a download for me. And the way people progress through this is I use meditation and EFT. And depending on where you are, we can use those techniques to help you move to the next step. Right. So one of the programs that I offer is a high ticket program where I'm taking people into a business that it's a business program which has a lot of mindset work associated with it. So it's helping people step into their power and also giving them the tools to create a business. So it guarantees $250,000 in sales in 2 years or less,
Okay.
but it's a reverse guaranteed program. So
Mm,
you only pay a quarter to begin, and then as you achieve your milestones, it becomes a part of it is due if you choose to continue. And then at the end, when you've actually achieved the full $250,000 in sales, is when you owe the price of the program. I'm also offering the same thing as in what's called a laser coaching program, where the all of the done for you is not available, but the coaching is available in 15-minute segments.
nice.
And people do, we coach for 15 minutes, they get homework. As soon as they finish the homework, then they book their next call. So that's a year of unlimited 15-minute coaching that people get. um, those are the two big programs. I also offer like a simple 4 session, what I call VIP Dreams program.
Hmm.
All of this is based on EFT and meditation and all of the work that we've talked about, how I work with people.
Hmm.
And in that, the VIP Dream session is just um, focusing in on a particular thing. So people who have come to me have had trouble with raising their prices for a product, and we sort of inquire what is it that you fear, and we delve into it. So one of my clients was somebody who had learned early on in her crib that it's not safe to ask for what you need because she got hurt when she was in her crib, right? And when we worked through it, she said something that I've been dealing with for all my life. Sree was able to resolve in a session.
That Okay, you just blew my mind. That is, but that a lot, some of that is what I do, just in a different method. However, I think it's so amazing how many people doing it differently are we're headed in a similar direction
Yes.
because for me, I've been lost and I've been in that situation where, I didn't know which way to go,
Yeah.
what to do, where to turn. And a lot of people feel that sense and they feel desperate. I've helped a lot of people raise their prices. I had to raise mine. And
Hmm.
oh, it wasn't comfortable, but I don't know that I know the full reason yet, but I have some ideas now. So, so that is just that is amazing. And so is this a launched program now? Have you already launched
Yeah,
the program?
I have the high ticket program has been launched. It's I have three people in my founders circle. I am looking to bring in more into that. The laser coaching has also been launched, and I have one person who's signed up for that.
Great.
The VIP session is an ongoing thing that whoever decides they want to know how I work, that they can come in. I also have a program right now. I'm just offering it as part of my high ticket offer, but I work with the book and the meditations to help people come into themselves and become fully loving of themselves. So,
I love that. And what is the name of your business? We're going to have everything available, of course. I'll have all that information for our audience. But what is the name of
my
your
business is freeing ourselves.
how appropriate? I think I wrote a blog by that exact title, except it said free yourself. Set yourself free. So
Yeah.
you and I are like living in parallel worlds
Yeah.
here, aren't we? Oh my goodness. Well, Sri, we've gone about 40 minutes, and I wanted to not prolong it, but we can have you back anytime because there's so much depth to what we want to talk about. I've
Yeah.
had other people on here, and I seem to be getting a bit of a not a theme, but a thread. I don't even have to ask you about how courage has impacted your life, how confidence has impacted your life. You've already shared that by default. And, the connections you've made, that's the whole theme of what I do. But for your story, it just happened. I didn't have to even mention it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I so appreciate you, and we can have you back and discuss further about how things are going and even deeper topics because we're on this journey.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to be back. I've really enjoyed this. And it's been such a free flow, right? Because it's not predetermined or fixed questions. So it's been a wonderful conversation. So thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
and thank you. I've had people try to put me in a box. Here are the questions, and I'll say, no.
Yeah.
No, I don't give questions and I don't get questions. So it's either free flow or not at all. That's me. So anyway, for now, we're gonna say not bye, but see you later, fans.
See you later.
Thank you for tuning in, and Sree, thank you for joining me. Stay tuned for another episode of Courage, Confidence, Connections podcast, and always a surprise who's going to show up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.